So in Oregon, you can be arrested for a DUI, of course, for alcohol, but you could also be arrested for a DUI for drugs or controlled substances, or a combination of both. On the alcohol DUI, of course, the standard everybody seems to be aware of, or everybody is aware of, is the 0.08 or greater blood alcohol content. You could be arrested below 0.08, but there's a line in the sand. Right? The breath test is lined up with whether or not you're impaired. But if this is not an alcohol DUI, let's say that you've ingested marijuana or a prescription medication or a different type of drug. In Oregon, it doesn't actually even have to be a controlled substance or a prescription drug or an illegal drug to impair you. Oregon's passed a recent statute that says essentially any drug that leads you to be less mentally or physically sharp than you would have otherwise been can lead to your arrest for DUI. That could include cough medicine. That could include Benadryl, Sudafed, or any number of different types of medicines that may impact a person that you wouldn't normally associate with recreational impairment, can be part of the foundation for a DUI. So in addition to alcohol, in addition to marijuana or recreational drugs, in addition to the over-the-counter medications that can lead to a person who is impaired, there's also prescription medications that can lead to impairment. And often this is a place where the good people we represent find themselves sideways in the system. There are a number of people who are living better lives because of prescription medications, right? Because they're helping them with sleep or with depression or anxiety or any number of things with pain. Just because a physician prescribes you medication, and just because you're taking it exactly as it's prescribed, does not mean that you are okay to drive. If those medications leave you impaired, meaning not as sharp mentally or physically as you would have been without having taken them, you can be charged with a DUI and convicted just on that. So how does the state prove that a person is impaired by something other than alcohol? Or even alcohol. So let's say that a person refuses the breath test and they don't have any breath test evidence. How does the state prove a case against a person like that or a person who doesn't have alcohol in their system and has a drug? Oregon has something called the Drug Recognition Evaluation, or Drug Recognition Protocol. The acronym is DRE. A DRE examination is somewhat ironically a 12-step process where where an officer is checking different physiological and mental elements, if you will, that is designed to identify if a person is impaired by a category of drug. In addition to this drug recognition evaluation, the state then uses a urine or blood test or breath test in addition to a urine or blood test to see what substances are in a person has ingested, that they're in their system. But for all these different drugs, prescription medications, over-the-counter, recreational, there's no line in the sand. There's nothing that says because I have taken X amount, because there's X amount in my system, I'm impaired. That doesn't exist for anything other than alcohol. And so really the entire case that the state has to prove is that, yes, this is there, but that not only is it there, but it actually caused impairment. It is very scary, the ability for a police officer to arrest someone and say that that arrest is based on marijuana, because the clues that an officer relies on to say a person's impaired by marijuana are so general that we often take marijuana DUI cases to trial because an officer is just flat out incorrect and has made assumptions. There's a saying that if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And officers are just like that. They go in a situation and they're assuming something, and often all the things that they see, they can assume this is because of impairment. And for marijuana impairment especially, that can be very subjective, right? You want law to be objective. You want to be able to say, because of this, and this, in objective ways, yes, a person's impaired or no, a person isn't. When it comes to marijuana intoxication, it is terrifyingly subjective. There's the risk inherent in using marijuana and driving. You may well not be impaired, but if you smell of marijuana, if you have marijuana in your car, if you admit to smoking within a limited period of time, an officer is going to make leaps in his or her assessment of you, and it is very difficult to disprove that, even though you're not supposed to have to disprove anything. In reality, it's very difficult to disprove that officer's assumptions in a marijuana DUI case. So although marijuana ingestion does not always equal impairment, it does equal a significant risk that if you are pulled over and an officer goes down an investigation, it may be very difficult to show what actually happened other than what the officer's versions of events or beliefs are. So for a cannabis DUI, the officers are trained to go through the drug recognition evaluation protocol. Part of that is they ask questions. When's the last time you smoked? Do you have anything in the car? How did you ingest it? Part of that is that they go through different field sobriety tests to see how your balance is. They also go through what are called divided attention tests. Divided attention means can you do something mentally and physically at the same time? So often an officer will ask you to pull the insurance card from your driver's glove box, but at the same time asking you questions. And the concept of that from the officer's perspective is a divided attention. I've asked you to do something and I'm asking you questions. In reality, you're going to be polite and you're going to stop doing this. You're going to talk to the officer who's in a position of power over you, but you've then failed this divided attention test because an officer thinks that you can't do both things at once. So the ability for an officer to investigate a marijuana DUI goes through a number of questions. If you say that, yes, I've ingested within a certain amount of time, and you don't do well on the physical tests or you don't do well on the divided attention concepts, there's a very high likelihood that you get arrested because the investigations, specifics investigations for marijuana intoxication are very, very general. So historically, DUI used to be associated simply with alcohol. Then it became alcohol and recreational drugs. And then it became alcohol, recreational drugs, or prescription medications. And now it could be alcohol, recreational drugs, prescription medications, or over-the-counter medications in Oregon. The way that an officer tests for impairment in things other than alcohol is largely based on their observations. Their observations through something often called a drug recognition evaluation or protocol. If you've been arrested for a DUI that involves any sort of drugs, with or without alcohol, you need an experienced attorney, experienced law firm to help you through this. Reynolds Defense Firm. We're solid. We're here if you need us, and we are very good at what we do.